My home has 83 years of history living inside its walls. 4 children raised, a husband who has passed, 5 decades of life collected in these rooms. And it's clean right now, at this very moment, without me having done a single weekend of frantic, exhausting cleaning. The wood floors are clear, the air is still, but I wasn't always this way. There was a time my house was an exact portrait of how many things I was failing to manage at once, a canvas of pure overwhelm. Every surface told a story of a decision I hadn't made, a task I hadn't finished. And that portrait? It wasn't pretty. It felt heavy, like the air itself was cluttered. Let me ask you something and be honest with me in the comments. Are you a naturally organized person? Or is it something you fight with every single day? Just tell me one or the other. What changed wasn't my personality. It wasn't about suddenly finding more time or summoning some hidden willpower. In fact, I had less of both than ever before. It was 12 habits I was forced to build when I had no other choice, when my life felt like it was coming apart at the seams and my home was just reflecting the chaos. I never let them go, not a single one, because I never, ever wanted to feel that way again. That sinking feeling in your chest when you walk through your own front door. Today I'm going to tell you about those 12 habits, but more importantly, I'm going to tell you the story behind each one. Because without the story, the habits are just another list to feel guilty about. And you and I both know lists don't work. The story is what makes it stick. It was the first year of my husband's illness. The house had a new sound then, a constant low hum from the oxygen machine in the bedroom that you could feel in the floorboards. And a smell, a clean, sharp, antiseptic smell that never quite went away, no matter how many windows I opened. It was a smell that was supposed to mean healing, but to me, it smelled like defeat. I remember standing in the living room one afternoon, just staring. Mail was piled on the coffee table, a fortress of unopened envelopes. The basket of laundry by the armchair seemed to be overflowing in slow motion. Dishes from breakfast were still by the sink. I felt this physical weight in my chest, a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that sleep couldn't touch. And I thought with a clarity that scared me, I can't do a full day of cleaning. I simply don't have it in me. It was a moment of complete surrender, but in that surrender, something else happened. My eyes landed on a single coffee cup on the end table, a ring of brown at the bottom. The thought wasn't big or heroic. It was small. It was quiet. It was, but I can wash this one cup. And then, I can put away this one pile of mail. You see, what I almost lost in that period wasn't my home's cleanliness. It was my own sanity. The illness was a chaos I couldn't control, and the house was becoming its perfect reflection. Fighting the small messes, washing that one cup, clearing that one surface, it was my way of fighting back against the larger despair. It was the only proof I could see with my own 2 hands that not everything was falling apart. It wasn't about having a tidy home. It was about holding myself together. My middle daughter, Maria, visits twice a year, usually in the spring and then just before the holidays. She's a good woman, smart and capable, but she carries the weight of her life on her shoulders, and you can see it the moment she walks through my door. She'll stand in the entryway, her purse still slung over her arm and her car keys in her hand, and just look around the living room for a long moment. Then comes the gesture I know so well, the one I've seen 1,000 times, her hand pushing her long hair back from her forehead, followed by a deep, tired sigh. It's a sound that says more than words ever could. "Mom, how do you do it?" she'll ask, every single time, her voice a mix of admiration and defeat. And in that moment, I see myself in her. I see the woman I used to be, the one who believed the only solution was a massive, exhausting effort, an entire weekend she never had. I see the same old story I used to tell myself, and I remember how heavy it was to carry. I look at my Maria, and I see the ghost of a life I used to live. A life where the only answer to chaos was more chaos. A weekend of frantic scrubbing, of moving piles from one room to another, only to have them creep back by Wednesday. That sigh of hers, I know that sound. It's the sound of a good person blaming themselves for a bad system. It's the sound of defeat. But what I learned in that quiet, desperate year, standing in front of that single coffee cup, is that you don't fight a flood with a bucket. You build small, steady channels to guide the water away. That's what these habits are. They aren't a list of chores. They are the channels I built, one by one, to guide the chaos out of my home and eventually out of my heart. And they are what I want to give to you today, not as a list, but as a map out of the overwhelm. The first habit was born in the dark, in those first weeks before the sun came up. I'd walk out of my bedroom and see the tangled sheets on the unmade bed, and it felt like the day had already defeated me. It looked exactly like the chaos in my mind. It seemed so pointless, making a bed that I was just going to mess up again in 16 hours. But one morning, I forced myself. I pulled the comforter up, smoothed it with my hands, and tucked the corners. The room was suddenly quiet. It was just one small rectangle of order in a world that felt like it was spinning apart. And I learned something. Control the first thing you see, and it will color the rest of your day. The next habit started at the kitchen sink. It came from the exhaustion of looking at a pile of dishes and feeling like I needed to climb a mountain. That single coffee cup I told you about, that was the start. Before, I'd always tell myself, I'll just do it later. But later, the water was cold, the food was stuck on, and the task felt 10 times bigger. So I made a new rule. The moment I was finished with a plate, a fork, a cup, it got washed. I learned to love the feeling of warm, soapy water on my hands for just 90 seconds because it was so much better than the cold, greasy reality of a pile of dishes waiting for me. The energy to prevent a mess is a fraction of the energy to clean it. Then I started to notice where the chaos began. It wasn't everywhere at once. It was always on the flat, empty surfaces. The kitchen counter, the dining room table, the little stand by the door. They were like magnets for things that screamed, "I'll deal with you later." A piece of mail, a set of keys, a book I meant to put away. It felt so natural to just put things down for a minute, but that minute turned into a day, and then a week. So I declared war on those surfaces. Keeping them clear became a discipline. I loved the way the light hit the empty wood of the dining table. Chaos needs a place to land. By eliminating the landing zones, you prevent the chaos from ever taking root. The hardest part of the day was the end. I was so bone-tired, the last thing I wanted to do was clean. But I realized I was waking up to yesterday's clutter, and it was like starting the morning already behind. So I started what I call the 15-minute restoration. Every night before bed, I'd walk through the main rooms and just put things back in their homes. A cup to the kitchen, a blanket folded over the chair, the mail stacked in its tray. It was a gift to the woman I would be tomorrow morning. The peace I felt turning off the lights in a house that was reset to 0, that was better than an extra 15 minutes of sleep. Of these first few habits, which one feels like it would make the biggest immediate difference in your own home? Let me know in the comments. For the longest time, I thought the mess on the armchair in the living room was a sign of my own laziness. It was always covered in a coat, my purse, a bag from the market. It was my chaos hotspot. I'd scold myself for it, clear it off, and 2 days later, the pile would be back. The change came not when I tried harder, but when I asked why. I realized it was the first place I stopped when I came inside, too tired to walk all the way to the bedroom to put things away properly. It wasn't a moral failing, it was a design flaw in my routine. So I put a small, beautiful basket right next to it. Problem solved. Your recurring messes are not random. They are data about your life. My brain had a habit of shutting down at the very thought of cleaning the house. The phrase itself felt too big, too exhausting. It was an impossible task, so I would do nothing at all. The breakthrough came when I gave myself permission to do less. I broke the house into zones. Monday was for the bathrooms. Tuesday, I'd dust. Wednesday, the kitchen floors, and so on. At first, it felt like I wasn't doing enough, but then I noticed something amazing. The house was clean, all the time. I loved the feeling of closing the door on one perfectly clean room each day, a small, completed circle. You have to break down impossible tasks into a series of possible ones. This next one was difficult because it went against how I was raised. My parents lived through lean times, and we were taught to save everything, to have backups, just in case. But as I got older, I looked in my closets and drawers, and I saw they were overflowing with a future that never arrived. Clothes I might fit into again, gadgets I might use someday. My home had become a storage unit for a hypothetical life. The resistance to letting go was real. It felt like inviting disaster. But the feeling of opening a drawer that wasn't crammed full, of having space to breathe, that was better. Your home is for living in now, not for storing things for a hypothetical future. I have to admit, one habit felt like pure torture at first. The 5-minute bathroom tidy every morning. While getting ready, I'd wipe down the counter and the faucet and give the toilet a quick scrub. It felt like such a waste of time when I was already rushed. My mind kept saying, just do a deep clean on Saturday. But Saturdays were for my family, for the garden, not for scrubbing grout. After 2 weeks of this tiny, annoying habit, the bathroom was sparkling, all the time. It never got truly dirty. That dreaded 30-minute weekly chore just disappeared. I have to admit, that bathroom habit was the hardest one for me to start. If you've ever struggled with one specific chore, tell me which one it is. You're not alone. It took me years, maybe decades, to understand the final habit, the one that holds all the others together. My mother, who came here from the Philippines with nothing, always used to say that our home was a place to build our dignity. I thought she just meant keeping things clean for guests. I was wrong. During that difficult year, when I was caring for my husband, cleaning wasn't about appearances. It was for me. It was an act of self-respect. Creating a calm, orderly space was the only way I could care for myself when I was busy caring for everyone else. You are not just cleaning your house. You are creating a space of dignity and peace for yourself. There's one last little trick I learned, and it's a funny one. I realized I could clean my entire living room faster in the 10 minutes before company arrived than in an hour of planned cleaning on a Saturday. There's something about that little jolt of adrenaline, that deadline, that focuses the mind like nothing else. So I started pretending. A few times a week, I'd set a timer for 10 minutes and just say, "Okay, Eleanor, Maria is stopping by." It felt silly at first, but it worked. I'd zip through the room, putting things in order with an energy I couldn't seem to find otherwise. A little bit of external pressure, even if you have to make it up yourself, is a powerful motivator. For so many years, I thought my house was a report card. Every mess was a failing grade, every clean surface a temporary pass. It felt like a battle I had to fight every single day, and I was always losing. But that's not what a home is. A home isn't a judge, it's a mirror. It doesn't tell you if you're good or bad. It just shows you honestly where you are. It shows you when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed, when you're carrying too much. These habits, you see, they're not about winning a war against the mess. They're about learning to have a gentler conversation with the person in the mirror. It's about treating that space, and by extension yourself, with a quiet and steady kindness. The goal was never to have a perfect house. The goal was to build a peaceful one. You've listened to my story. Now let's talk about yours. You don't need a crisis to begin. I did, but you're here, which means you already know you want to live differently. For years you've told yourself a story. I'm just not an organized person. I am an 83-year-old woman telling you that story is a lie. It's an excuse, a comfortable old blanket that's keeping you stuck. The only difference between a person with a clean home and a person without one isn't personality. It's a single decision, made over and over again. So here is my challenge to you. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. After this video ends, I want you to pick one surface in your home, just one. The kitchen counter, the chair in your bedroom, the coffee table. I want you to clear it, completely. Put everything away where it belongs. It will take you less than 10 minutes. That is your decision. That is how you start. I'm sitting here now, in the same living room that once held a perfect portrait of my overwhelm. The late afternoon light is hitting the wood floors in the exact same way it did back then, but the picture has changed. It's no longer a canvas of failure. It's a quiet testament to a promise I made to myself. A promise to find peace right in the middle of a storm, one small decision at a time. My mother was right. Our home is where we build our dignity, not for guests or for show, but for the person who has to wake up there every single day. These habits didn't just give me a clean house. They gave me back a piece of myself when I thought everything was lost. They turned my home from a source of stress into a place of peace. If this story made you feel like you can start to change the portrait in your own home, please share it with one person you know who might need to hear it. And subscribe so we can continue this conversation together.